Okay, recording has started. Welcome back from our 15 minutes break. Like I said earlier, I will spend the next 1 hour, 13 minutes talking again as usual. Then wherever we find ourselves after that, then we can close. So my time starts now. It means that I have to close on or before 1:37. So that you can go and rest and begin to look at the details. Um, if you have not reviewed the previous classes, if I leave you earlier, focus on it. You can pass this exam. I'm the one begging now. That's one thing about me. I beg CI candidates to prepare well, but CI candidate will not listen to me. I'm begging you, prepare now. This exam is doable. Within 3-4 months, you can do it. We saw somebody on the platform that was not even part of a class. He only looked at the videos that we shared. In just about 3 months, he did it. He made a mistake by scheduling the exam without knowing the details of this exam. But when it came to me, I shared our classes recording, and he had to pass this exam by fire by force in about 3 months, and he did it. And if you can do it, you have not scheduled the exam. If you take the next 2-3 months to prepare for this exam, even before you schedule it, you will still make it. Just be serious. Like that man said, he did the day and night on it. That is tough. And that is how it is. The only people that will say it's not tough is those people that over prepared. You will say there's nothing about this exam. So thank you. Welcome back. This is where we stopped before we went for our break. And I've started my time. So let's move on. Let's continue with principle 2, maintaining objectivity. And now we are diving into the specific requirement that help, keyword specific requirement that help internal auditors protect their mindset of being unbiased or impartiality. First, you must recognize and either avoid or mitigate actual and perceived impairments. We have done this area. Am I making sense? I think we have done this. This is not where we should start, right? Hello, we have done this. I've spoken about this. Internal auditors must disclose any potential conflicts of interest when offering. Yes, I've done this. So let's move on. Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't take note of that slide number before I moved to we went for a break. So let's start from here. We want to continue the safeguarding objectivity, which was in the previous slide, so that we can focus. We want to focus on practical considerations for implementation, and that is the reason why you are seeing consideration for implementation. This is a summary of what is in the GIS. I think this will help us to better understand it without having to read too much. That was why I said I'm confident that after this class, you should, even if you review the classes again, you should be able to get this area done easily. So objectivity is impaired when circumstances, whether intentional or not, influence our judgment in ways that could alter audit findings or our audit conclusions. And here is the key point that you must take from this area. Impairments don't have to be actual to be damaging. Even the appearance of compromised, even the appearance of a compromised objectivity can erode trust in your work. And that is why internal auditors must apply sound judgment, not just in identifying obvious conflicts, but in recognizing subtle influences that may be perceived as impairment by others. So if you are just returning I've allowed your microphone. I think everybody's microphone is working now. Yes, somebody entered with DU. Who is DU? Who is DU? You can unmute yourself anyway. Just want to recognize the presence of that person anyway. So you must apply sound judgment. That is not just about identifying obvious conflicts, but you must recognize subtle influences that may be perceived as being biased or impairments by others. Not about you. Others may perceive those things as bias. So don't wait until it is real. And one major source of impairment is what we call conflict of interest. Conflict of interest occur when an auditor has a competing professional or personal interest that makes it difficult to remain impartial. When you have a competing professional or personal interest that hinders you from being unbiased, even if no unethical action takes place, the mere perception of impropriety can undermine confidence, trust in the auditor, confidence, trust in the department, confidence, trust in the profession as a whole. So let's look at some examples of conflict of interest, whether in fact, keyword, whether in fact or in appearance. One, situation that oppose or compete with the organization's interest. Reflect on that. Two, opportunities for undue financial or personal gain. Also reflect on that. Three, action taken primarily to shield oneself from loss or harm. Reflect on that. Four, nepotism or favoritism towards certain individuals. All of these examples show how easily objectivity can be compromised or appear to be compromised if we are not vigilant enough. So, as an internal auditor, we must constantly ask, is there anything in this situation that could reasonably be seen as influencing my judgment? If the answer is yes, you must take steps to disclose or reduce or mitigate or remove the impairment. So I will encourage you again, as usual, read your GIS constitution for implementation. But I know that what we are saying here is still the same thing that you will find there. You may come back and confirm that after you read your GIS. So objectivity is not just a professional requirement, it's a public promise. It's our professional responsibility to protect our objectivity as internal auditors. So as we conclude this our exploration on principle 2, maintaining objectivity, I want us to focus on one of its most critical components, which is disclosure. Yes, you make mistake, disclose. You feel it, disclose it. You perceive it, disclose it. It is real, disclose it. So, according to standard 2.3, if objectivity is impaired, whether in fact or appearance, internal auditors must promptly disclose the details to the appropriate party. That to the appropriate party means reporting to the chief audit executive or a designated supervisor or manager. And if the impairment involves the CAE, if you as a CAE, you are the one that perceived the impairment or faces the impairment, the disclosure must go directly to the board. Keyword, if the CAE perceived it, or the CAE is the one that found its objectivity to have been impaired, who do you report it to? Report it to the board. Your subordinates, your internal auditors or manager report to you as a CAE. Why you report your impairment up? Am I making sense now? Watch out for these nuances. These nuances, watch out for them. You won't know you have heard about it before until you take a scenario test on it and you miss it and you have to go, why? Then when you come back, you discover it's there in our implementation guide or consideration for implementation. So what we are not just talking about formal compliance. We are talking about protecting the credibility of our work. If an auditor notices a situation that could affect his or her impartiality, you must speak up. You must speak up, and that is the essence of disclosure. Speak what? Speak out, speak up. So, if it is confirmed that the issue is impacting your objectivity, the CAE must take action. For example, engaging with organizational management, the board, or senior leadership of the organization to resolve it. Even after an engagement is completed, wait, don't say because you have done it, it doesn't matter again. You have completed the engagement, it doesn't matter. That's not your standard. Even after you have completed the engagement, if impairments are discovered that could affect the reliability or perceived reliability of your findings or your conclusion, the CAE must initiate discussion with all relevant stakeholders about it. Fine, you have completed the engagement, it wasn't noticed. But after it was noticed, disclose. The goal here is to restore transparency and trust in the internal auditors, in the work of the internal auditors, in the professional practice of internal auditors, in the internal audit as a profession. And yes, if the CAE now, the CAE's own objectivity is impaired, like I said before, the CAEs are required to inform the board. So you must understand that leadership accountability is non-negotiable here. I hope I'm making sense. All of these nuances are the things that will be tested in the exam, scenarios that will be used. So from an implementation standpoint now, most internal audit departments have methodologies. Don't forget, the meaning of methodologies is policies, processes, and procedures that outline how to disclose and address impairments, whether perceived or actual. The policies, processes, and procedures help ensure consistency and fairness in the disclosure. So, but what about in the cases where you cannot just avoid impairment? I mean, when impairments are unavoidable, the CAE asks choices to make according to the implementation guide. You may consider options such as 1, reassigning auditors, 2, rescheduling engagement, 3, adjusting the scope, 4, assessing the engagement or the supervision of the engagement. If it can be avoidable, please note these scenarios and what you are expected to do. You won't know when the questions will ask about them. So these strategies now that you have here can be formalized in internal audit policies to ensure ethical reliance or not reliance, it should be to ensure ethical resilience in complex situations. Ultimately, disclosing impairments is not a weakness in internal audit profession. disclosing impairment is a strength. Disclosing impairment is a strength. It shows that we value integrity over convenience. Yeah. And that we are committed to safeguarding the trust placed on us as internal auditors. It's as simple as that. How would that make sense? Now, I'm going to take just one. The last time I said I would take one, I took two. I'm just going to take one scenario. You can look at this later when you have the presentation document, but you should get the insight from at least one of them. Let me take number three. Number three. I just chose, it's just a random choice anyway, so not planned. Balancing professional relationships. An auditor's friend leads a department under review. The friend hints that a favorable report would help their career. The auditor maintains professional distance and bases conclusions strictly on evidence. This upholds principle 2 and reinforces the importance of impartiality. What's the result? Trust in the audit process is preserved and ethical boundaries are respected. All of these scenarios that you see here remind us that objectivity is not also just a principle. It's also a daily practice like the integrity. It's about recognizing when our judgment might be compromised and taking proactive steps to protect the integrity of our work. And as internal auditors, our impartiality is what gives our voice weight. So let us continue to honor that responsibility with clarity, yeah, courage, and consistency in our practice. There's no two way to it. Just do it. If it is required, just do it. Alaba says, if it is required, just do it. Thank you. So let's shift our focus to other aspects, the policies and practices that help internal auditors maintain objectivity, and what to do when that objectivity is at risk. Now, the DIAS emphasized that objectivity must be protected not just at the individual engagement level, but through the internal audit department's organizational policies that anticipate and address potential impairments. Do you have such policies in your organization or in your department? I mean, now, I have three key strategies that you will find here that internal audit department can use to mitigate impairments. You have heard about them even in the previous slides, I think two slides ago. Reassigning internal auditors. I think something like that came up earlier. So if an auditor has conflict of interest or power involvement with the area under review, reassigning them to different engagements is often the simplest and the most effective solution. That is if you have the team, you may be limited by team. We have some small internal audit shops that may not be able to do the reassignments. I understand that. So the reassignment helps preserve impartiality and avoids any perception of bias. The other part is assessing the performance or supervision of the engagement. I think we also saw this earlier. I'm talking about cases where internal auditors are limited or the impairment is unavoidable, such as when the CAE has oversight responsibility of the area that you are auditing. So another option is to outsource the engagement or the supervision of that engagement to another independent third party to restore credibility and independence. I've always been asking questions about people who are head of internal audit, this management and control. How are they auditing those areas? And the other one which we have spoken about in detail is that disclosing payments. I've said it before, transparency is non-negotiable. If an impairment exists, whether actual or perceived, you have a professional responsibility to disclose those impairments promptly to the appropriate party. And the appropriate party could be, I've said it before, the appropriate party could be the CAE, the board, the senior management, depending on the situation. So don't also forget that this disclosure allows leadership to make informed decisions about how to proceed, and ensures that stakeholders remain confident in the audit process. So all of these policies that are required, all of these policies that are required are not just procedural, they are protective. I mean, they are they are what? They are protective. They safeguard the integrity of the internal audit function. They reinforce the profession's commitment to ethical excellence. So, as you prepare for this CIA exam, you must be ready to analyze these options. These options, you must be ready to apply all of these options to real world scenarios. You must be ready to think critically about when each strategy is appropriate and how it contributes to maintaining trust in internal auditing. So the way other people define trust may be different from the way we define trust, most especially the way we practice it in internal auditing. Now, let's look at analysis of policies promoting objectivity and mitigation options for impairment. Now that we have understood the principle of objectivity and risk that can impair it, let's explore how internal audit function uh, can proactively safeguard objectivity through policy and practice. The GIS require us to not only recognize impairments, but to prevent and mitigate them through structured uh, policies, no, enforceable policies, through structured and enforceable policies. That is it. So let's break down three key policy area quickly. So we are starting from with conflict of interest, COI disclosure policies. These policies are designed to identify financial, personal, or professional relationship that could impair objectivity. Annual disclosures require auditors to declare any financial interest, power roles, or relationship that may pose a conflict. Engagement specific declarations ensure that disclosures are made before each assignment, not just once a year. Practicing internal audit heads, watch out. And this aligns directly with standard 2.3, which we did. And that standard mandates disclosure of impairments to objectivity in the concluded standard. Now, another area that you also need to look at is auditor rotation. This should not be new. I've spoken about it, but I will still emphasize it. Auditor rotation policies help prevent familiarity bias and reduce over-reliance on relationships with auditees. So auditors are rotated across departments or engagements every 1 to 3 years. Let's at least for practice. Auditors are prohibited from reviewing where they previously held operational roles. For example, someone who worked in the IT department cannot audit IT controls for at least 1 year, right? So these auditor rotation policies also support standard 2.2, safeguarding objectivity. Now, the third aspect, which is a training and awareness program. This is to cultivate ethical decision making and help auditors recognize bias. Regular training sessions reinforce the global internal audit standards requirements on ethics and professionalism. You are not too old to go for training on ethics and professionalism, even if it is a requirement for CIEs. So, case studies now is to stimulate real world dilemmas like handling pressure from management or navigating personal relationships. The most important aspect of this is to build a culture of vigilance and ethical resilience. So, all of these policies together form a proactive framework that helps internal audit professionals maintain objectivity, even in complex or high, high pressure environments. The policies are not just procedural, they are strategic tools for preserving trust, for preserving transparency, and for preserving professional credibility. So, as you prepare for your CIA very soon, be ready to analyze all of these policies. You need to understand their mechanisms. You need to apply them to practical scenarios. Because in internal auditing, objectivity is not just a standard, it's a safeguard too. Now, let's also explore uh, how internal audit functions can respond to identified impairments to objectivity. And don't forget, these strategies we are discussing are not just reactive. They are they are they are the essential safeguards that reinforce the credibility of our audit process. Now, let's look at the use cases. And for example, reassigning internal auditors use case. An auditor has a close relationship with a manager in the audited area, or they previously designed the process now under review, creating a self-review threat. The process, the auditor is reassigned to a different engagement. The rationale for the reassignment is documented to demonstrate conformance with the GIS. So this process now protects impartiality and shows that the audit function takes ethical risk seriously. Now, the other aspect, assessing the engagement, the use case, high risk audits like fraud investigation, where internal staff may lack independence, or when specialized expertise is needed or required, such as cybersecurity. The process now, a third party firm is engaged to perform the audit. Don't forget that the outsourced auditors must also adhere to both the global internal audit standards and the organization's internal policies. So, based on these case studies, this will ensure objectivity while leveraging external capability. And the third aspect, independent review and supervision. Use case now. suspected leniency in audit conclusions due to familiarity bias process. A supervisor or independent third party validates the work papers and conclusion, that it is based on facts, it is based on data evidence gathered. Another aspect is dual sign-offs are required for critical findings. Oh, on this, okay, two person must acknowledge that it is based on the evidence. So when you follow this process, it's a matter of adding an extra layer of oversight on that work and being able to reinforce the integrity of the audit outcomes. So we have so many. For example, we can talk about disclosing impairment. We have a use case concerning disclosing impairment, which we can also look at. For example, if you hold let's say you hold a stock in a subsidiary under audit, or you have a sibling working in the audited department, or a department under review, what should you do? Disclose the impairment, disclose the potential impairment to the CAE, or the CAE disclose the impairment to board. So those are the things you are talking about. But the key word is that transparency is key, because even perceived bias can erode trust. There are other one where we have a restriction. If an internal auditor previously managed the department now under audit, what should you do? Those are the situations we need to we need to visualize in practice for us to prepare uh, for the CIA exam. So each of the case studies or use case that we discuss here, and the strategies for mitigating impairment, reflects a proactive commitment to ethical excellence. They all demonstrate that, or show that, objectivity is not just a principle. Objectivity is a practice. And it's a practice backed by policy and leadership. And as you prepare for this exam, be ready again to analyze different kind of scenarios, evaluate the risk, and recommend appropriate mitigation strategies regarding impairment. Because in internal auditing, protecting objectivity is protecting trust. That's the message. Now, let's move on to the next. Maybe if we can complete this section, then we can we can we can close, because I think this section is a bit okay. It's not really long. Okay, it's not long. Now let's focus on this the application of knowledge, skills, and competencies required to fulfill the responsibility of internal audit function. I have, as a consultant, you will send a proposal, and organization will tell you this is how much they want to pay. There was a scenario where one of our CI candidates wanted our firm, wanted Gold Can Oversight Professional Services Limited to do the EQA. But we couldn't agree because of the fee. The fee was too, like my dad told me. He said a lawyer's is worth the fee that he charges. So the fee was not, they didn't want it. So they got another consultant. So during the that's that CI candidate is a CA. So during the audit, the CA came back to me and said, their consultant is arguing that every internal auditors must be a chartered accountant. He said the consultant was arguing that how can he respond to this to the consultant who says every internal auditors every internal auditor must be a chartered accountant or certified accountant. I laughed. Then I took him through the GIS and provided sections of the GIS to use to buttress his point when discussing with the criteria. It means that many people in practice don't know the knowledge, skills, and abilities required to fulfill internal audit responsibilities. So this section is all about action, how we bring our capabilities to life in real audit environments. Whether these competencies are developed internally or procured externally, these competencies must be applied with precision, professionalism, and purpose. As an engineering student, precision was one of the things that I will learn in instrumentation. Now, let's break the key skills areas as overview. We're still going to talk about them. If I want to rush, I will not talk about all of this. But if I miss something later, I am sure I will have laid a good foundation from here. Written and verbal communication skills. Internal auditors must deliver clear, concise, and impactful messages. Whether in reports, whether in meetings, or in presentations, such as what I am doing now. Communication is how we translate findings into action. If you cannot talk, if you cannot write, internal auditing is not for you. If you cannot communicate, internal auditing is not for you. You know, we write and talk. The other one is critical and problem-solving skills. We face complex issues daily as auditors. We must analyze root causes. We must evaluate alternative actions. We must recommend creative, innovative solutions that truly add value to our organizations. Research skills. This collecting information, collecting regulatory, let's say from regulatory updates to industry benchmarks. As auditors, we must gather and synthesize information from diverse sources to stay informed and relevant in our organizations. The other one is persuasion and negotiation skills. Conflict will happen. People will they will disagree with you. They will disagree with your findings. They will disagree with your recommendation. So persuasion and negotiation skills are essential for managing conflicts, influencing your stakeholders, driving collaboration, especially when audit findings challenge the status quo. You need persuasion and negotiation skills to get management and others to do the right thing. If you don't have it, forget about it. Just as we say in Nigeria. You also need relationship building skills. You can only earn trust. You can only earn credibility. Trust and credibility are earned. Nobody will give it to you based on your CV. And that is the reason why you must build strong relationship across the organization to foster openness and cooperation among the stakeholders. Another area is change management skills. Because you must understand that the business environment is always evolving. It is constantly evolving. As internal auditors, you must be able to adapt, guide others through change, and remain resilient in dynamic conditions or situations. And also curiosity to uncover new information and foster continuous learning. It is the engine of continuous learning. You must ask questions. You must explore new ideas. You must remain intellectually engaged. Then we can end this general overview with continuing professional development, which also has a standard in this ethics and professionalism that we are treating. This is where you must understand that. Okay, let me give you a scenario. Normally, in our own environment in Nigeria, we believe once you're a chartered accountant, you are an internal auditor, and you are of internal auditor of a very high recruit with your ACA, with your FCA and co. But every professional body has the requirements for continuing professional development. However, in our own convention or culture in Nigeria, continuing professional development does not relate to achieving certification in internal auditing, which is different from accounting that people studied. Yes, continuing professional development does not relate to getting certified as a culture, as a convention in our own environment. It does not, once you have, but you have a discipline that is different from what you learned in accounting, which you have to develop onto. So we do not have that culture of moving from having a background in accounting to moving to proficiency in internal auditing, where we make our money as professionals. So that tells us that competency in some other profession could be static, but not for internal auditing, not for IIA internal auditors. No, not for CIAs. That is why when you go to LinkedIn, you see internal auditors with long lists of abbreviations behind their names. I can even say, based on what I see on LinkedIn, internal auditors are the ones with too many certifications. And it's because we know that competency is not static. Even the fact that I am not an accounting professional, I still did training in accounting. I still went for training in accounting. I still desire to go and do undergraduate degree in accounting because I've been in this field for too long that I will not establish myself in accounting or decide to become. If you look at behind me, the books you are seeing behind, they are ICCA accounting manuals, which I have studied in the past. That is competency. All of these books, majority of them are accounting books, which I have studied in the past. But I'm not an accountant, but I'm still learning. So ongoing learning through training, certification, and experience is essential to stay sharp and effective in internal auditing. All of these skills form the professional toolkit of a modern internal auditor. I'm not saying conventional internal auditor. A modern internal auditor. These are not just exam content. No. They are career essentials that we must all imbibe. The CIA exam will test your ability to apply all of the competencies in real world scenarios. Nobody's asking you what is essential skills. So think beyond the theory. Ask yourself, how would I use these skills to resolve problems? How would I use these skills to influence outcomes? How would I use these skills and protect my organizational value? These are the things that we should think about. So let's keep building that mindset as we move forward in this profession. That is it. So let's move on. Now, let's now explore what it really means to be competent as an internal auditor. You may have your own belief about competence from any other profession, but this is GIS, and this is where our strength is as CIS. And this is one of the reasons why the GIS requires that now every EQA team must have at least one CIA, because this is what we got certified on. Let's learn what competence mean in internal. According to the GIS glossary, competency is defined as a combination of three key things: knowledge, skills, and ability. So when you say competency, we are talking, so just as I said, methodologies means policies, processes, and procedures in internal auditing. In internal auditing, competency means knowledge, skills, and ability. So when we say competency, you are talking about three key things together. So we can say KSAs: knowledge, skills, and abilities. Knowledge, skills, and abilities are not just academic concepts. They are our building blocks of effective audit performance. The reason why I call myself an internal audit fundamentalist is because of understanding all of these basics in internal auditing. No, I never claim to know advanced internal auditing. I always say I understand the basics, and those basics will take me far than the gigs or buzz competencies that people talk about. So the foundation is knowledge. Do not denigrate knowledge. Somebody with knowledge, regardless of whether the person has experience or not, respect knowledge, because it's the foundation. It's the first thing you need to get. It is the theoretical and factual understanding we gain, or we all gain, through education, training, and experience. The theoretical and factual understanding you gained from training, from experience, from education. These are examples. I don't want to go through them. These are examples for us. So, knowledge is what we know. What do you know? Knowledge, no. Knowledge is the body of information we draw upon to perform our services with accuracy and relevance in internal auditing. Like I always tell people, I say, the only body of knowledge for internal auditing is the IPPF. You may have other body of knowledge in accounting, no problem. But when you come to internal auditing, the only place you can find a collection of knowledge for internal auditors is inside the IPPF. Now, let's move to skills. Skills are how we apply the knowledge that we have gained. Am I making sense? Skills are how we apply that knowledge that we have acquired. It is the application of knowledge. That's skills. Skills are the practical capacities we develop over time through training and experience, beyond the factual, beyond the theories in the books. So we may have so many examples: technical skills, communication skills. You can look at all of this later. But just understand what skills are, what knowledge is. So skills reflects our level of proficiency in a particular area. Skills determine how effectively we can execute our responsibilities. And let us not forget that competency is dynamic. I mean, knowledge, skills, and abilities are dynamic. Competency evolves with the services we provide and the environment we operate in. That is why industry competency is relevant. Um, Professional competency is relevant. And because competency is dynamic, that's why there's a requirement for continued professional development. And complete professional development is so essential because of the dynamic nature of competencies. CPD, continued professional development, is how we stay sharp, how we stay relevant, and ready to meet new or face new challenges as we practice as internal auditors. So, in this exam, think about how these KSAs, I mean, and knowledge, skills, and abilities show up in your daily work, and how they will also show up later in your work. Don't forget, competency is not just about passing a test. No, it's not about passing a test. It is about earning trust, delivering internal audit values, and growing as a professional. So now, abilities. Okay, we want to complete our exploration of competency now by focusing on the third pillar of the KSAs, which is the abilities. So the abilities are the innate or developed capacities. They are the innate that is in you or developed capacities that allow you to apply your knowledge and skills effectively across diverse and, you know, in most cases, often unpredictable situations. Your abilities are what transfer, what what convert. No, that is not the right word. What transform, yeah, what transform your technical proficiency into professional impact. Now, let's look at some key examples. Okay, we spoke about some of this earlier on. I don't want to go through them again. Ethical judgment. We have done that in this our ethics and professionalism. Okay, leadership is new. Okay, guiding other teams in resolving conflicts, and it's part of some of the things that we spoke about. But it's very important that you also look at this leadership. Let me just look at this leadership. Leadership is about, it's either you are guiding other teams, resolving conflicts, or fostering clinical. But the most important thing that I want us to take out of this leadership is about influence. Leadership is about influence, how you influence others. Clarity is about clarity. It's about responsibility. It's about accountability. Um, just give me a few seconds. I need to attend to technical issue. Issue resolved. Thank you. Thanks for your patience. Now, okay, let's look at the practical scenario to connect all of this now. The real work scenario. Knowledge in action. An auditor applies their understanding of cybersecurity frameworks, like let's say NIST, like COVID 2019, COVID 5 or so, to evaluate IT controls. Do not denigrate knowledge. It is very important. The first pillar is to have the knowledge. Skills now in practice. Using Excel. Python is a programming language. Now, internal auditors using those tools to analyze procurement data to detect anomalies. 3, abilities. How abilities can be demonstrated. They now manage multiple audits under tight deadlines without sacrificing accuracy or thoroughness in their work. That is ability, putting all of them together. So, this integration of knowledge, skills, and ability is what makes internal auditors truly effective. It's about how we deliver not just assurance, but the insights, foresight, and value. And value, I mean. So think about how all of these abilities also show up in your own work, or how you will cultivate them moving forward. Because competency is not just what you know, it is about how you lead, how you adapt, and how you elevate the profession. And which profession? Internal audit profession. Now, we are now arriving at the real principle. The all things we discuss is to have a general idea. I am very sure that this will help us. This is the principle that speak directly to the art of our professional excellence in internal auditing. So, the global internal audit standards define competency as the ability to apply knowledge, skills, and abilities to fulfill our roles and responsibilities successfully. It is not about having qualifications. Competency is about using our qualifications effectively. It is about using our qualifications consistently. It is about using our qualifications ethically. So let's break down this standard 3.1 competency. Internal auditors must possess or obtain, keyword, possesses or obtain. You must possess or obtain the competencies required for your responsibilities, to carry out your responsibilities. The competencies must match both the job position and the auditor's level of experience. That's what CAE determines, not HR. This matching are one of the works of the CAE, not the work of the HR. You only work with them to establish it. You must have or develop a working knowledge of the global internal audit standards, which we are now doing. Don't forget that this one is non-negotiable. Another aspect, we must only engage in the services where we already have or can reasonably attain the necessary competency. Like I told you, I said, I do not do accounting or financial reporting or external auditing. I only engage in the services where I already have, or I know I can bring people to support me as an internal auditor. Whether I'm talking about my understanding of frameworks like COSO Internal Control Integrated Framework, or the compendium of our approaches and examples related to external financial reporting, or internal or COSO enterprise management integrating strategy with performance, or ISO 31018, and so many other frameworks area that I engage myself, or the GIAS. Even with the GIS, we use for EQA, for example, personal quality assessment, we use the quality assessment manual, the most recent one, 2024. We still need to acquire knowledge using the recent GIS as provided by the IIA. That is how it is. So, competency is a personal responsibility. It is your responsibility to be competent. Each one of us must continually develop and apply our knowledge, skills, and abilities. But it's also a leadership responsibility because the CAE must ensure that the internal audit department as a whole has the competencies needed to fulfill the responsibilities, the roles established in the mandate, which is integrated in the internal audit charter. I have connected the past to the present now. Thank you. Let me move. I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say because we have done. I'm linking the mandate because mandate is authorities, roles, and responsibility. I'm linking it into the internal audit charter instead of just saying the charter. I'm recalling what we did before. Now, let's look at the consideration for implementing these standards. Internal auditors should develop competency in areas such as nobody says you should go and be a CIA or a chartered accountant or a CISA or CFE before you become an internal auditor. Develop your competency in areas such as communication and collaboration. This is not new. Governance, risk management, and control. That is key. Business functions like finance and IT, fraud and other pervasive risk, data analysis tools and techniques, external conditions, economic, legal, political, and social, industry-specific laws and regulations, emerging trends and issues, supervision and leadership. I hope that makes sense. Go and keep it, go and develop it in your department. So, to build these competencies that are in the consideration for implementation, you can earn professional credentials like the CIA designation. That's the reason why you are here. You can seek feedback from your colleagues, peers, and stakeholders. You can pursue targeted training, whether through courses, mentorship, or supervised assignments. Just develop. So, these principles remind all of us that competency is not static. Competency is dynamic. Competency is a journey. It's about staying sharp, like I said before. It's about staying relevant. It's about staying committed to delivering value to your stakeholders. And as you prepare again, think about how you are developing your own knowledge, skills, and abilities. I hope you have developed, if it is not knowledge, it could be skills or ability in this engagement that we have started since 30th of August. Any response from that for that? I hope you are developing knowledge at least, which is the first pillar. Any response? No response. Okay. Or I'm still waiting for your response. Okay. So competency is not just about what you know. It's about how you show up in every day in your whole career, every day, how you show up for the profession, for yourself and for the profession. So okay, we are wrapping up principle 3 now. Let's focus on standard 3.2, continue professional development. The first thing you must understand here is that competency is not a one-time achievement. I have spoken about this continuing professional development. Now I'm establishing it more. Competency is not a one-time achievement or event. Competency is a continuous journey. Yes. As internal auditors, we must maintain and develop our knowledge, skills, and abilities to improve the quality and the effectiveness of the audit services we provide, whether assurance or advisory. I am not just making recommendations to you. I am telling you that this is a requirement. Now, let's talk about what CPD, continuing professional development, looks like in practice. One, education and training. Formal courses, certifications like you are trying to do now, workshops, anything that deepen technical and strategic expertise. Use it, do it. You can also consider self-study and on-the-job training. You must realize that learning does not stop when the class ends. Auditors must grow through reading, research, and hands-on experience. I do a lot of research to bring these classes, to change these classes every day, every time. That's the reason why the slide, even if the slide content remains the same, the insights that will be shared will be different from the previous classes. Special assignments. Let's talk about rotational programs. Any assignment that exposes you to new processes, any assignment that exposes you to new processes, new perspectives, new practices. Mentorship and feedback is also there. I am guiding some people in internal auditing. I've been guiding some people in internal auditing since 2020. I am still guiding them. I'm still under somebody's guidance too. So mentorship and feedback is key to CPD. Guidance from supervisors, from colleagues or peers. All of these things can help you refine your judgments, help you improve performance, and help you build leadership capacity. Before I became a thought leader, somebody approached me, somebody I never knew came to me and said, Guy, this is in you. This is what you must do. These are the things you should be doing now at this level. And immediately I started doing them. I was recognized in 2020 as a thought leader in the profession and still recognized year after year. So it was as a result of, and somebody told me too, after the 2020 recognition as a thought leader by Richard Chambers, former president of the IIA Global, somebody called me from, another person called me and said, you should not use your recognition to earn salary. Yeah, that was somebody I never knew just called me from another country. Direct call and say, congratulations, you are representing us in Africa. Do not use your recognition, your knowledge, your advocacy for your passion for this profession. Do not use it to earn salary. So it didn't take long in 2021 when I stopped going to work and earning salary and started something on my own. And I've been here since 2021, enjoying what I love doing, talking and sharing and also mentoring other people. So it's part of what has made me. And I've also mentored some people too into becoming thought leader globally, recognized by IIA Global. Yeah. And I've also made many CIAs based on my mentoring and guidance. So that's what we are doing. It's part of CPD. So another area is your industry awareness. If you are in the banking industry, if you're in the insurance industry, if you're in the pension industry or pension administration industry, oil and gas, you need to stay informed about emerging risk, about changes in regulation, best practices in your industry. All of this can help you remain relevant and proactive. So for people holding CIA, or for example, okay, for people holding professional certifications, whether ACA, CPAs, or ACCA, or CIA, there are mandatory continuing professional education that are required by your body, by the institute that um, provided that certification. Most times it includes a minimum number of hours annually that you must achieve, and you must meet these requirements. And meeting these requirements is not just about compliance; it's about credibility. Most times people don't ask for uh, our CIA classes, the certificate for participating. Most people don't ask, but maybe they think it's not required. Now you know that the reason why we add CPE credits into those certificates is because we know you are learning, and you must have an evidence to show. Even people that we know that they don't come to the classes as often, we will wait for them until months that we think we schedule that they should have gone through the classes before issuing the certificate for participating in these classes. So it's less for you to develop yourself and show evidence. If it is not documented, it doesn't exist. If your training is not documented, it doesn't exist. So now, why each internal auditor is responsible for their own professional development? The CAE has his or her role or plays a strategic role. CAE must budget and plan for training opportunities. It's a must. CAE must assign auditors to engagement that stretch their capabilities. CAE must encourage mentorship and supervision. CAE must establish CPE plans for the audit team. And finally, every internal auditor should create a personal development plan. I'm talking about a roadmap for ongoing learning. Ongoing what? Ongoing learning and growth. You are responsible for that. So these standards on competency reminds us that competency is dynamic. Competency evolves with the profession. Competency evolves with the organization and the world around us. And by committing yourself to a lifelong learning, you don't just meet expectations, you will exceed all expectations. Now, let's continue, dive into another session. Okay, I have about 10 minutes as I promised. Let's give everybody opportunity to at least get to the level that we are in the class as of today. Now, let's move into principle 5. If the principle 5 is not too much, I may decide to just show them. Okay. I want to see the principle 5. If it's not, where are we? We are on 28. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, we are on 28. Oh, okay. Principle 5 is much. I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slides to cover here. I want to finish this principle 5. Yeah, let me finish it. Let's finish this principle 5 before we close today. Let's try at least so that when we return next week, we only have just about 4 slides to finish this section. Then we move into governance immediately. Then that will help us to move into governance and risk management on the same day. That is possible. I believe it's possible. So let's set a reasonable target, although I don't want to overload you, but I still believe we should get the best from this class. So shall we start the last principle in the domain? That area that will, like, I can push to next week will be, let me see it. Just a minute. That would be about maintain confidentiality and use of okay, that would be related to, okay, no, okay. So don't worry, let's do this principle. It's part of it's an aspect of this principle 6. So let's start from here. This principle speaks to the quality, diligence, and integrity of our work as internal auditors. That's a fact. Due professional care simply means performing our roles and responsibilities with the level of attention, with the level of competence, with the level of caution that a normal, I would say it in Nigeria, a normal person, or let's use professional word, that a reasonable, prudent, and competent auditor would exercise under similar circumstances. Due professional care is about the job being thorough or doing the job thoroughly, not just checking the boxes. One of the most important elements of due professional care is professional skepticism. And professional skepticism is the mindset that prompts us to question assumptions. It is the mindset that prompts us to probe deeper when something doesn't add up. This doesn't add up. We probe further, deeper. It is the mindset that prompts us to avoid accepting information at face value without sufficient evidence. It is what they gave you, okay, continue to use it. Now, professional skepticism is not about being cynical. It's just about being curious. It's just about being cautious. It's about being committed to uncovering the truth. You are always seeking the truth. How do you uncover the truth? By just accepting a document or information without sufficient evidence to support it. So when we apply professional skepticism, we are able to detect potential fraud. We are able to identify control issues or weaknesses or gaps. And we're able to challenge sometimes an overly, let's say, overly optimistic narratives about a situation. So when you demonstrate due professional care, it means you are applying the appropriate audit methodologies. You are tailoring the procedures to the risk level and complexity of the engagement. You are documenting your work clearly and thoroughly. And also, you are communicating your findings with clarity and precision that is expected. So, this principle 5 reminds us that internal auditing is not just a technical function. That internal auditing is a professional discipline. And the quality of our work reflects the trust placed in us by our stakeholders, by our regulators, and by the public. And as we progress, let us explore how due professional care is applied in practice and how a typical CIA exam scenario may test our ability to recognize and respond to situations that demand it. Now, let's move on. Let's explore what due professional care really looks like in practice. The IIA defines due professional care as the diligent planning and performance of audit work, guided by sound judgment and professional skepticism. It's about acting in the best interest of the organization, not with perfection, but with reasonableness and responsibility, proportionality. These principles recognize that internal auditors are not infallible. You can make mistake. We are not expected to catch every error or foresee every risk, but we are expected to apply the level of rigor that a prudent, competent auditor would use in similar circumstances. Let us break what this due professional care means further. The first thing that you must learn here in due professional care is your conformance with the GIS. Our work must align with the professional framework that governs internal auditing, and it is the IPPF. The second part is consideration of context. We must tailor our approach to the nature, complexity, and risk level of the engagement. The other part is application of professional skepticism, which means that we critically evaluate information, we critically question assumptions, and we are alert to inconsistencies, errors, indicators of fraud, or red flags. Now, let's talk about diligent planning, which is a key part of this concept of due professional care. Diligent planning starts with risk assessment. You identify audit objectives, then you conduct a risk assessment. What are you doing? You are expected to identify high impact areas like procurement or payroll, where fraud or control failures are most likely. That's why you do risk assessment in planning your audit, when planning your audit. So you are expected to define clear audit objectives, audit criteria, audit scope, and timeliness. All of these are based on the complexity of the process or the activity under your review. And finally, we're expected to allocate sufficient resources. Allocating sufficient resources. Resources like time, tools, and skilled team members to ensure the audit is thorough and meaningful. So, due professional care is what separates routine audit from an impactful audit. It is the difference between checking the boxes and uncovering insights to drive relevant or real change in your organization. So, as you prepare for the CIA, think about how you will demonstrate deep professional care in different scenarios. Reflect on all of these concepts. Because this principle is not just about doing the work, it's about doing the right work or doing it rightly. Let's move on. Okay. Okay, we have some, at least I think we have two practical description of due professional care in internal auditing. Let's start with professional judgment. When we say professional judgment, what is professional judgment? Professional judgment is about applying your expertise to make informed, context-sensitive decisions throughout the audit process. This is where technical knowledge meets professional intuition. Let's look at these practical examples. Sampling. Choosing a sample size that is statistically valid but also realistic. For instance, testing 30 transactions out of 10,000 may be sufficient to detect patterns without exhausting resources. That's a judgment. Another one that is so popular in external auditing or accounting domain, materiality, which is about prioritizing issues that could significantly impact the organization. We don't chase random errors, but we do investigate unexplained, let's say, $10,000 variances or 1 million naira variances in some context. Another aspect is escalation. Escalation, I mean. We need to know when a finding demands immediate attention. If you uncover evidence of embezzlement, you don't wait for the final report. You must alert your managers, alerting the responsible senior management as established in your own internal audit methodologies. So all of these decisions here require your judgment, and they all reflect your ability to balance precision with reality or practicality. Now, let's talk about professional skepticism. Like we said before, is the mindset that keeps us sharp. It just means questioning assumptions, verifying information before you adopt them, and always staying alert to potential errors, irregularities, inconsistencies, and things like that. So, how can we see this in practice? We talk about supporting evidence or corroborating evidence. Don't just accept verbal explanations. If it is not documented, it does not exist. Cross-check with other evidence like system logs, emails, or third-party records or documents to validate claims, verbal claims. Testing controls. If a control is labeled effective, observe it in action. For example, check whether passport policies are actually enforced, not just documented. Documentation is about adequacy of the design, but the effectiveness is about the performance. The red flags. You are expected to investigate patterns that don't sit right, indicators of potential fraud. If somebody repeatedly overrides approval limits, dig deeper. It could signal a control breach or fraud. So Professional skepticism is what helps us move beyond surface level assurance into meaningful insight. It is not about distrust that you don't trust people. It's more about your diligence to do the right thing or to work to show up. So, performance with judgment and professional skepticism together form the backbone of due professional care. My alarm has told me that my time is up, but I promised that I told you that I wanted us to finish this side so that we can take a time with previous section and move on. Now, I said both performance with judgment and professional skepticism concepts form the backbone of your due professional care. They both ensure your work is not only technically sound, but also ethically grounded and strategically relevant to the context of the organization. So let's move on. Think about, try to visualize all of this in your practice. How would you apply these principles in real audit scenarios? Do professional care is not just a standard. I've been mentioned emphasizing it. It's about mindset. So the last part of this practical description of do professional care, before we now go into the standard description, then we end it there. Let's just focus on two final dimensions. And these two final dimensions bring the principle to life before we study the principle. And it is acting in the organization's best interest and acknowledging fallibility. The first one, acting in the organization's best interest, means balancing thoroughness with efficiency. You must avoid over auditing. Yes, over auditing is where excessive testing drains your internal audit resources without adding any value. That is the reason why we must focus on what matters most when you are auditing. I've been telling internal auditors, even experienced one, that auditing processes from start to finish does not make sense in light of limited resources. You will see some audits, they will start from the start of that process to the end. Maybe the process has about 25 steps. They will start auditing. That's not risk-based auditing. What value will they start? That we have to audit critical areas where your value will be recognized or acknowledged, where the organization operation will be affected if such control is not effective, are adequate or effective. That is why the practical example is risk-based focus, spending more time auditing a new high-risk IT system than a well-established one, which is a low-risk process. You have to identify which one is a low. For example, in internal control over financial reporting, there are two aspects of a process. One aspect is a control that makes the process work well, where we can talk about operational efficiency or effectiveness or contributions to profitability. But the other side is the aspect of the process that has impact on financial reporting, such as accounting area, financial statement area, like balance sheets, income statements, and disclosure areas. Those are the areas. Instead of auditing those operational areas, we focus on areas that impact financial reporting, where, for example, where recognition of revenue starts. So that is one. The other area is cost benefit mindset. You are expected to recommend only controls that are practical and cost effective. For example, automating reconciliations to reduce manual errors and save time. Now, acknowledging your fallibility. Audits have limitations. The first thing you must learn. We work within certain constraints of time, certain constraint of scope, certain constraint of sampling, and other resources. The meaning of due professional care is to be transparent about all of these limits, acknowledging all of these limits in practice. Examples include disclaimers, clearly stating in a report that audit provide reasonable assurance, not absolute certainty. Consulting experts, engaging IT specialists or forensic auditor when technical expertise is needed. And that is because competency includes knowing when to ask for help. Another aspect is documentation. You need to record the rationale behind decisions. For example, why certain risks were excluded to demonstrate trustfulness in your judgment. For example, when you do CI Part 2, when you get to scope, you are expected to declare what is included and what will be excluded in the audits. Please, I want to be sure that all my devices are working. I want to be sure that all my devices are. I'm getting prompts from my different kind of devices. Okay, if you can hear me clearly and you can still see me, there's no problem. Now, let's look at practical scenarios about this. We want to bring all of them together now. Let's, for example, planning. You can use data analysis to target employees with unusual high expenses so that you can focus your audit in that area. You can talk about skepticism. You are expected to question vague receipts labeled miscellaneous services when you are reviewing evidence. What is miscellaneous services? Now, talk about judgment. You can sample 50 transactions instead of 500 and justify rationale why you choose just sample, balancing thoroughness with efficiency. Another aspect is the fallibility that we are talking about. Fallibility. Acknowledge that some fraud may go undetected due to sampling because you cannot test all transactions. So, in terms of recommendation, you can recommend automated receipts, automated reconciliations, tools to reduce. All of those things can be. So, when you look at this simple scenario about how you apply this, you can think about how you can apply due professional care in real time. Thorough planning, skepticism, judgment, transparency, communication, fallibility, acknowledging fallibility, things like that. The key takeaway here is that due professional care is one. Please note, doing enough, not doing everything. You are expected to do enough. You are not expected to do everything. And that's the reason why you prioritize based on risk and resources. Two, you are expected to balance rigor and realism. We are just saying that you should avoid both complacency and overzealousness. Just do enough. Balance between having to rigorously test something and the reality on ground. The third key takeaway here is about that documentation that we spoke about. Document decisions. This should demonstrate a logical, defensible audit process. Document why you chose that decision. Write it. If it is not documented, it doesn't exist. We want to see your rationale for using that approach, for taking that route. So if you uphold all of these principles regarding the IIA standards, this GIS, then you are expected you will be able to deliver insights that drive meaningful improvement in your organization. In your what? In your organization. Now, let's quickly go to the principle and the standards. I am very sure that with all those descriptions, you know what the standards is saying. Let's explore the principle 4. Exercise due professional care. So we start with standard 4.1, conformance with the GIS standard here. One thing that this standard reminds us about is that due professional care begins with alignment. You must plan and execute your work in accordance with the GIS. That's all. I have said it before in the discussion. And that means, one, using established, documented, and maintained internal audit methodologies. Adhering to those methodologies when planning, performing, and communicating audit services. Referencing any additional requirements from other authorities when applicable. Now, what happens when laws or regulations conflict with the standard? What? You must still comply with all other parts of the standards. You must make appropriate disclosure about conflict. And if full compliance with the GIS is not possible, the chief audit executive must document the issue, describe alternative actions taken, explain the impact, and provide rationale. So if you didn't follow the standard and EQA consultants are asking you, you should know that you should have documented the rationale, why you took that approach. And don't forget that this process is very essential, not just for transparency, but it is essential for maintaining credibility during external quality assessment. Standard 8.3, 12.1, 15.1 or so, which provide the detailed guidance on how to disclose non-conformance. So I want to talk about some implementation before I leave this place. One, if there's a conflict between the GIS and another authoritative requirement, you need to follow the stricter one. For example, in the insurance industry in Nigeria, they do their EQA every year, but GIS says every 5 years. So what do? Follow that authoritative guidance. The NICOM in Nigeria. That's the meaning. Another one, in cases where full compliance is not feasible due to sector, law, jurisdiction, industry constraint, take alternative actions that will still uphold the underlying principle and document it. Don't forget that all the actions that you took must be documented thoroughly. You should document the circumstances, the impact, the justification or reasoning behind why you took that approach. If it is not documented, you cannot use it as evidence. And finally, if an auditor cannot follow a standard during an engagement, you must discuss it with the CAE or your supervisor. The truth is that the CAE or your supervisor will guide how and to whom the non-conformance should be communicated. And conclusion is that all of these standards reinforces that, again, good professional care is not just about doing the work, it's about doing it right. Even when challenges arise, do it right. It is about accountability. It is about adaptability and transparency. That is just it. And let's move to 4.2. Let us evaluate nature, circumstances, and requirements of audit services. And in this part of the principle 4, it's raining. I think I may need to put off my camera so that there won't be problem with the internet. We have had nice internet service since we started today. So let us close. We have only one slide after here to close. Now, we want to focus on how internal auditors demonstrate deep professional care by evaluating the context and the requirements of each internal audit engagement. And this is not just about following procedures, it's about tailoring our approach to the real world dynamics of the organization and the audit environment. Let's break down the key evaluation areas. 1, organizational strategy and objective. Your audit should align with what the organization is trying to achieve. That's the meaning. We are not just checking controls, we are supporting strategic success. 2, stakeholder interest. And that includes internal audit clients, senior management, regulators, and even the public. We must consider expectations around fairness, safety, and transparency in our work. 3, governance, risk management, and control. We assess whether these systems are adequate, effective. We are not just talking about their presence or their adequacy. We want to know whether it is working as intended. Also, we have to talk about cost versus benefit. When we say due professional care, due professional care means asking, is the depth of this audit justified by the potential value it delivers? For example, if controls are clearly flawed, you don't need to conduct a full-scale evaluation of the effectiveness. I've been saying it. If controls are clearly flawed, a full-scale evaluation may not be cost-effective. You have already assessed that the control is not adequate. Even if it is applied according to the design, it will not still reduce or prevent the risk from occurring. Another area is the extent and timeliness of work. We must always ensure our work is sufficient to meet objectives, but also timely enough to be actionable. The other aspect is complexity, materiality, and risk significance. High risk or high impact areas deserve more attention. You should prioritize based on what could truly affect your organization. Another area is that you must consider the probability of errors, fraud, or non-compliance. Internal audit focus efforts where the likelihood and impact of issues are greatest, not all activity level. And also, the other aspect is the use of tools and technology. You are expected to apply appropriate techniques like data analytics or automated testing, which can enhance your efficiency and insight that you are delivering. We can now talk about implementation. You must evaluate the cost and resources needs of each engagement against its potential benefits. And this is how we ensure that internal auditor delivers maximum value for the organization's investment. Don't forget, due professional care is not about doing everything to show that you are working. It is not about doing everything to show that you are working. Due professional care is actually about doing the right things in the right way and at the right time. Does that make sense to us now? I hope it makes sense now. The rain is gone. I can now show my face. Finally, today, 4.3, professional skepticism. We want to focus on one of its most vital components, which we already know based on the practical descriptions that we had. And just to tell you the truth, based on the way we have approached today's class, my spirit told me to just upload today's session on YouTube, which I'm going to do. I'm going to keep it in our folder, but this section only, I'm not saying adding it to the next week. I'm going to upload this to this section or to this section on without editing anything on YouTube so that some internal auditors can benefit too. Because I believe I've taken this one calmly enough and detailed enough that I believe people can learn from, apart from having to come and pay us to come for our classes. So people that will be watching too, they will hear what I'm saying. Yes, it's just inspiration. Sometimes I'm just inspired. There are two things that I have to do today that I'm inspired to do today. I'm inspired to provide a guidance on a checklist on principle one on that course that I shared with us on the platform. Yes, when I woke up this morning, I'm inspired that I should share a checklist about that principle. Maybe that will help people to learn better, or that will help people to implement or assess as form of a tool that I can be used in the assessment. So there are two things that I need to write down. Please let me just notice uh, um, checklist for ICFR P1 ICEFR. Then two, upload to this YouTube. Everything today. Today's date is 13/09/24 today. So these are the things that I must do this weekend and share it among the internal community. So professional skepticism is not about, it's not a technique. It's not a technique. Let's say it's not just a technique. It's more of your mindset, because it is professional skepticism that allows you to make objective judgment based on relevant facts. logic, and evidence, not assumptions, trust, or even belief. No, I trust you, I believe you, but professional criticism will lead me to get a corroborative or supporting evidence to rely on what you told me. So let us break this down. We said it before. Skepticism means questioning the validity of claims and statements. The claim, like in financial reporting, we say management assertion, management claims about an account, area of an account, or disclosures as it relates to aspect of a financial statements. What are the claims? Accountants will say occurrence, they will say existence. Am I making sense? They will say presentation and disclosure. They will say completeness. They will say something allocation and something like that. Those are the works of for the accountant. Accountants know better. If the accountant in the house, I hear you know better. Anyway, questioning the validity of, let's say, those claims that the organization owes those obligations or liabilities, for example, in terms of financial reporting. So, skepticism involves curiosity, a willingness to dig or dive deeper when something doesn't add up. I've said it before. Skepticism is about verification, not blind acceptance of something. As internal auditors, you must seek evidence to confirm management assertions, which I said they are the management claims. Management claims that something exists or something occurred, rather than simply taking them at face value. You must seek evidence. That is why they don't like us, because they will tell us and they will more, our stakeholders will tell us something they want us to believe is the way they say it, right? Am I making sense? So, according to standard 44.3, internal auditors must exercise professional skepticism throughout the planning and performance of audit services. And that means maintaining an inquisitive attitude. And that means critically assessing the reliability of the information that you have. And that means being straightforward and honest when you are raising concerns. And that means seeking, supporting, or additional evidence when information appears incomplete, when information appears inconsistent, when information appears misleading. So finally, let us talk about the implementation. You should apply skepticism when gathering and analyzing data. That is, always ask yourself, is this relevant? Is this relevant? Is it reliable? Is it sufficient? If there is an indicator of abnormality, inconsistency of or fraud, or there's a red flag, or a red flag appears, you need to analyze the information further. So, validation of evidence can be strengthened through review and approval of work papers and communications by the CAE or the supervisor of the engagement. And more importantly, the CAE play another key role in cultivating this mindset that we call skepticism. The CAEs are expected to provide workshops and training to sharpen skepticism skills among the auditors. They are expected to provide opportunities for auditors to practice critical thinking and challenge assumptions. Those are the trainings that auditors should go through, provided by or planned by the CAE. The CAE should also provide a culture that encourages honest inquiry and ethical courage within the internal audit department. So, professional skepticism is what protects the integrity of our work. It is more of how we uncover hidden risk, hidden problem, hidden issues, hidden challenges, how we challenge flawed narratives and deliver our findings that stakeholders can trust those findings. I always say there's something I challenged recently on IIA platform, which is about internal auditors build trust among stakeholders. Those narratives, there are some narratives that will happen in audit that you have to challenge. I challenge narratives a lot. As a student of logic, I place every argument using logic. Like internal auditors build trust among stakeholders. How do you build trust among? Is it the purpose of internal auditing is to build trust among stakeholders? Yeah. So challenge narratives. That is why we are internal auditors. And I think I have unpublished article since that time that I had that argument, still unpublished. An article on that matter. I will share. I think I will share that article this week by the grace of God, so that you can read the reasoning behind why I challenge that narrative about the purpose of internal auditing is to build trust among stakeholders. No. So that is the same way you can challenge narrative logically relating to issues, because they may not add up. So finally, this is where we close this area. As you prepare for CIA exam, I want you to remember that skepticism is not about you being a doubting Thomas. It's not about you becoming a doubting Thomas. The key word is diligence. It's about diligence. Skepticism is the glass, no, not glass, is the lens. Is the lens through which we see clearly. Is the lens through which we see clearly. It's the lens through which we think critically. It's the lens through which we act responsibly as internal auditors. So we will conclude this section next week. Thank you very much. Over to you for questions. Let me note where we where we stopped. Over to you for questions so that we can go and write and have time to do our revision. Today's date is again 15/09/25. Start from slide 35 next week. That's it. So, who is going to IIA conference, IIA Nigerian conference? Who is going to IIA? Who is attending the IIA conference among us? Okay, let's stop this video then. If there's no question, let's stop this video recording so that we can close. I want to stop. If there's no question, no addition, you can say something. Over to you now.
So, hello, Mr. Aulaja.
Hi.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes. So I think when you were discussing the other time about where there are limitations that you should disclose, okay, why you are not able to do a
Mhm.
particular process. So that the CIA should document. So I'm now asking if you are not able to do a particular process. Let's say we are supposed to do a strategy audit,
Mm.
okay, maybe by virtue of limitation or there are challenges that we were not able to do it. So where do
Mm.
we document it when we don't actually have a report for that strategy audit? That's my question. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you for the question. This is about disclosure. In your audit report, you need to tell your stakeholders that that area should have been part of the audit for certain reason, so certain limitation you are unable to test to take to include that area, and that area will be included in the subsequent audit when this issue is resolved. So your audits should say it. Your audit file should include that rationale. Why? What alternative method did you use to at least to let people know that this is what happened? So your working papers should include why something that normally was part of the scope was not audited. And your report should also say it. Being transparent. You cannot just hide it and say, since they didn't know about it, or if you don't report it, they won't know. What we are saying is that you should be transparent enough to say it that this was part of the scope. You had a limitation in this area for so reason, but the audit has to continue, and you didn't conduct tests in that area. However, you will do this subsequently about that area. How would that solve the problem? So your working papers should include such just rationale, just reports, and your final report should also communicate to your stakeholders. However, if the area is a high risk area, you should resolve the issue before you continue. For example, if you think that area is a sensitive area that will interest your stakeholders, you should resolve the issue while the audit is ongoing so that you can do it as part of that audit, unless you do not have capability in that area. That could be another justification. And getting a resource person to help in that area uh, cannot be achieved within within the time frame for that audit. I hope I made sense, Mr. Fadare, right? Mr. Oludari, I mean Oludari
Okay.
Fagbemi.
I think it's fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other addition? Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend. I will update our resources, but please follow along with the class. Don't wait till don't wait till when everything is concluded before you start preparing for the CIA. As you are learning bit by bit, try to establish the things that you have learned. Even I'm not sure people saw the resources that we share in the last class. There are lots of there are handouts for the class, for the section. There are multiple choice questions that you can use to practice. All of those things are there. The reason why we are adding them now is because we want you to follow along with the class. Use them now. By the time you subscribe to whether it is the IIACI learning system, Becker resources or Gleam resources, you will discover that you are already, let's say, 65 to 70% gone in the syllabus based on the class. You're only establishing some details. Maybe we didn't discuss those in detail, but I don't think you will miss too much. But the way we have put realities into the discussions is the value that I think we are adding to you. So I need somebody to tell me by tomorrow if he had covered the section A of this syllabus. Thank you very much for your time. See you the same time next week. where we will conclude this section B, then start section C immediately. Do have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's go and enjoy. Let's go.